It's morning, and that means it's time for Rotten Mornings. The best way to start your morning off rotten. Well, hello, dear listener. We hope you're having a rotten morning. This is Rotten Mornings. I'm Scott.
I'm Matt.
I'm Brandy.
And we're going to talk about a couple of things that we saw yesterday in the broadcasting schedule.
Stop talking like that. You are annoying the hell out of me.
This is my announcer voice.
This is my natural voice.
I sound like this when I speak.
Yes, I agree. You do sound like an asshole when you speak, just not that exact asshole.
Yeah. I like to leave options open.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay, so let's start with the review of all the stuff we did today.
Yesterday.
Yesterday, right? 'Cause today, right? So let's talk about what we did yesterday.
Yeah.
So yesterday, we had the. Hopefully, you guys are listening to the podcast.
If you did, you heard the man from Torrid,
Which was a really cool podcast. I think we had a little bit more scientific talk on that one than we have other ones.
And we backed that science with nothing.
And we will probably have to do some backtracking. And then we had the first episode of Rotten House that hopefully everybody's into that. It's not super like, oh, boom, boom, all this stuff's happening, but it's just simplistic.
You know what? I liked it because it's very rare that we put out stuff where it's like behind the scenes or like stuff like that. And even though things that you have your yard, your Halloween haunt set up, even though that may not be a specifically a set, it is a really cool thing. People love this. Yeah. The neighborhood loves to see it. So seeing that come up is a really cool thing.
Hopefully you guys will enjoy all these Rotten Houses. I promise you, as they get further into episodes, they get more entertaining because I started thinking about that. But then we had the unfinished review.
Yeah, of Spook Trail. Yeah, it was great.
I hate that we did not get to get him a review last year just because of everything that happened. But when it released, we will be going out to Spook Trail, of course, at some point and give them a real review this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think in the unfinished review, you hit on some topics and you hit on a couple of different things that's kind of important. Spook continues to be somebody who's super passionate, enthusiastic about working with us and doing stuff. So,
and when we filmed the movie out there with him, that was super fun too.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen Fatal Cut, you should check out Rotten's Fatal Cut.
If you haven't seen our movie Fatal Cut, you should probably invest in Netflix and watch something else.
If you have seen it, we're sorry. We're so sorry.
The blooper reel's the best.
The blooper reel is actually the better movie. And then, of course, we had my next episode of Rotten Strips.
That's right. We had episode 3 of Rotten Strips. And there's a couple of things I really wanted to talk about in this episode.
Let me have it.
Well, man, the death scenes that you had, the rotten deaths, dude, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Really, really well done, and I super enjoyed that. I liked the I don't even know what you called that section. It was the wasteland, warrior or narrator.
I believe it was Scuttle.
Yeah,
Scuttle. Yeah, Scuttle's. Oh my god, I can't believe I can't remember. Well, it was good. Watch the episode. Here's a little teaser of it. I'll just give you a trailer of the title, so then that way you go watch the episode.
Yeah, they did yesterday.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you didn't watch it yesterday, now that I'm telling you about it, you should watch it today.
Yeah. Did you guys have a lot of fun filming that?
Yeah, it was super fun. Super fun. Real fun.
And we got to see some different making of stuff there, and that was really neat. So I think overall we're 3 deep into Rotten Strips, and I think that they're plugging right along. I think that they're doing well. What do you think, Brandy? Is everything to your liking on these?
Sure.
Okay, good. that's that's the most positive review we've gotten so far. Would you watch this? Sure.
I do watch it.
Randy has to ride that really
I have to watch
fine
it
line
many times.
not
until
telling us we
it's
suck
finished.
and offending us. And not telling us we're super good and us getting all full of our shit. So it's a very fine line of kind of mediocrity.
That's why I tend to lean back and forth at times.
Yeah, when Scott walks by, because it's very thin hallways.
Well, let's not forget your live at Hellbilly Hollow.
Yeah, that went really well. Seeing DCC again and talking to Tim. And we've got some stuff that we talked to Tim last night about that we've got in the works between them and the Chicken House. So maybe we can have some sort of I'm kind of working on a sort of a documentary about like how the haunts were put together, the people involved, just different things. Nothing set in stone yet, but we're just kind of talking about some ideas like that.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I liked the live feed. I generally do. I generally enjoy those. Kind of giving a quick snapshot. Invite the viewer to join you at the haunt. So really good job. Good job, guys.
Well, let's talk about what we have planned to show you for today.
Oh, yeah, let's do. We've got the podcast that you're listening to.
Hello, this is here and now.
Yeah, we are today.
You will get your second episode of Rotten House.
Yep, and that's going to be a hoot. That way you can finish up seeing the shadow box build that I was working on the last episode.
Man, I'm excited to see that. Mostly because I pretended to be excited about the first one.
It's good.
Yeah.
Consistency is all we ask.
Yeah, so I'm just asking you to match the level of praise that I gave the first one with the second one. That's all.
Okay,
That's
I
all.
will do my best.
Yeah.
And then we have Scott's second episode, which is episode 4 of Rotten Strips, and I'm sure that's going to be a hoot.
And I'm sure it's going to be out on time. So
we make promises and mistakes.
Guys, we're having a blast.
Mistakes. We are having a blast, although this weekend has been a bit hectic, I would say.
I want to thank, of course, for Friday night, the Chicken House. I want to thank for last night. I want to thank Hellbilly Hollow. They're always so receptive to us. They're always such great. It's a great time. It's a great haunt. And look, guys, if you even get out to any haunts, we have got you got to go by one of these haunts. Hellbilly Hollow or the Chicken House is near you. One or the other one is near you. They are great haunts. They're
really
great
are.
Atmospheres. They're great people. Energy. We love going out and seeing those cats. Now, we will talk as nice about other haunts as well, but we haven't visited them yet, so let me get that visit in, and then we can go from there.
That's fair. That is fair. All right, guys. Well, that's been the review portion. We're about to jump into the supernatural, the strange, and the unusual. So stick around for that. We'll be back after the break. Stay rotten.
I broke my foot.
Standing nearly 20 feet tall, the Georgia Guidestones loom ominously over the state of Georgia. Commissioned to be built in 1979 by a stranger who had come to town and went under a pseudonym. Upon the creation of the Georgia Guidestones, all information about their creation was destroyed. Tonight, dear listeners, we discuss the Georgia Guidestones. Yeah, so that's the story, as we kind of know it, of the Georgia Guidestones. What do you guys think about that?
That's wild. This whole time, I'm thinking that the idea of the quote unquote Georgia Guidestones, I thought, because I heard something along the lines of a compass, that it was just a bunch of stones with holes that you could look through, and it showed you the lines, ley lines or something. True. I didn't realize that by guide it meant a how-to guide. Not a guide to topography, but a guide to doing, to being.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
What's interesting, too, that you bring that up, there are a couple of spots in the Georgia Guidestones that have holes drilled through them that you can see equinoxes.
Yeah.
So
I literally thought that was all it was.
Yeah.
I did not realize that it had all these different languages and writings and stuff. That's pretty cool. But then again, it also still wavers on the side of, I mean, what if just a bunch of rainbow hippies went out there and... Like, bro, love the earth, man. Like, come on.
Hey, you know what?
500 million people.
If any group of people want to put up a piece of rock somewhere...
Hey.
Well, you know, I have to say, I'm really fascinated by the part of the story of the man who didn't exist, basically, and the anonymous organization he was supposedly hired by to erect these stones.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by that part.
I would also say that there's a little bit of a running theme to the last 3 of these stories, and that is all evidence was destroyed.
It's very except for Henry Wells. Now,
yes and no, because Henry Wells burned up in the courthouse to burn the documents of his existence, and so there all these things are still speculative.
Yeah, so I think like the evidence of the story is missing. The Georgia Guidestones are still there, you know, obviously. So those are kind of things. But absolutely, I mean, I
tell the
agree
Georgia
with you.
Guidestone stories a different way, without the mystery, and tell it to like, okay, so at one point, Burning Man decided they wanted to have a festival in Georgia.
Sure.
And one of the artists there had a bunch of friends that came from all around to go to Burning Man. He set these stone slabs up there, and he had each one of his friends inscribe the same inscription in their language on those Guidestones. And then over time, these people just designed this thing.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a neat story.
Yeah.
It's still interesting.
But it's not mysterious.
But it's not nearly as interesting.
Yeah, because you have all the evidence of everything that took part. I think that what really adds the element to all of these stories
is
the fact that there is no proof. So it's an interesting idea that when people say, why don't people have better pictures of ghosts? Why don't people have better pictures of UFOs? Would it not be also plausible that if you did have better pictures, it would no longer be that thing anymore? Because without the mystery to it, nobody gives a
it's not as cool.
So it's interesting that you bring that up. There are a couple of parts of this story as you dig deeper into it. The bank, the guy who ran the bank, who had this agreement that he would never reveal and would destroy all the documents. People always considered him a very upstanding guy. To his deathbed, he kept the secret. If he's dead now, I'm not sure if he is or not. But there's never been a news story that he's passed that I'm aware of. Right. But there is a story that he didn't destroy the documents and that they're in a box in his garage. Like he took them out of the bank where no one could get them.
Or they're buried in the supposed
time
capsule. Yeah. The other thing that came about is apparently this guy wrote a letter to either the granite company or to the bank owner and kind of giving them an idea more about what the Georgia Guidestones was. And I think he wrote a book too. So there are some other little pieces out there. The organization that he represented immediately dissolved after the Guidestones was built. So it was like it only was created in order to raise the money to do the Guidestones. But yeah, still, and they still call him the stranger that came to town. Like, there's still not enough information based on.
So he sounds like a Tales from the Crypt episode, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's really neat. We're gonna go through a few of these, the guides, I guess, the statements written on the
like
Georgia Guidestones.
The same exact thing is written on every one of the stones in a completely different language, and it's these 10 different suggestions of life or guide to life.
Yeah.
And before we jump into that, I just want to throw this out there. Of the American great wonders of the world, this is one of them. This has been called an American Stonehenge because of its enormous size, because it's all made of stone. It's not, put together. It's just a giant stone structure. So Stonehenge could have been created without a written language, but as a way of communicating a similar thing.
Yeah, true.
It's just.
But again, with Stonehenge, if we had the story of a bunch of stoner hippies going out there and going like, "Man, let's set these rocks up," like again, the mystery robbed away from it. It's no longer. It's
not as fascinating,
but it's not fascinating.
Sure. I like that we continue to get stories about the Stonehenge rock, where they came from today.
Yeah.
They come from somewhere new every day.
Every single year, there's a different. And they buried Easter Island heads at one point.
I love that.
Yeah.
Brandy, what are the first couple there?
The first one is maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. And the second one is guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity.
Yeah, so this looks like, from a lot of people's perspective,
eugenics
of gene profiling, or I'm trying to think of the wiping out of a race. So that terrified a lot of people. They're like, "Hey, you put up this stone."
Well, if you read it a certain way, it can read as pro euthanasia. It could read as pro weeding out the gene pool. It could read as pro when anybody says only X amount of people, every single person's mind goes to, am I in that group?
Sure.
And if somebody is not in that group, there is a way to say this is a selective group. If everybody's not involved. So anytime you get to a point where it's like only this many people can go,
right?
If anybody else can't go, they fit in a group of people that could say, well, there's none of this kind of person in here. There's none of this kind of person in here. So what is in that particular idea, how can you provide diversity if eventually with a set number of population, there will be no more diversity?
Right.
Because everybody will be the same ethnicity, the same. Eventually,
so it seems
we'll all
like
be
the
exactly
first
the same.
two contradict each other in that regard.
You can see it that way. Sure. I think I think what people read into it is like guiding your reproduction for fitness is to only reproduce in order to replenish the 500 million.
And you know what? Let me give you a hot take or a hot opinion. I definitely, I apologize to anybody who has, you have multiple kids. I still think, and this is wild, that it is completely okay for the government to mandate an amount of kids that you are legal to have. And I think 2 in cases should be the limit. Now, I don't think the government should demand you to have kids.
I feel like it's more likely that we, with the 0, are the ones that balance out the higher numbers.
Yeah, that's true, but my point being that the problem with selective birthing is if you have a class of people that are more important than another class of people. So in Japan, when they did selective birthing, the importance was on men, so they wanted to have boys. Well, now you have a whole generation of Japanese boys that don't have mates because they practiced only having one child. So there's a duplicity to the idea of it. It constantly is a fluctuation of, is it okay? Is it not okay? Is it ethical? Is it unethical? Blah, 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 blah.
Okay. What are some of the other ones written on there?
We have unite humanity with a living new language. From a stone tablet with multiple languages on it. I find that kind of odd. Rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason.
Which we've thrown out the window like eons ago.
Oh,
the population thing too. We threw that out the window before we even read that.
Yeah. There's been several attempts at a universal language, though. The one that comes to mind for me is Esperanto, which came about early 20th century, and is still kind of spoke by some people, but was never universally adopted by everyone.
I think the only universal language that exists at this point is mathematics.
I would say that we are not far from English being universal language, only because of the unwillingness of certain English speakers to learn a different communication form.
Yeah, it's interesting how the will of the stubborn normally becomes the quid pro quo across the board.
And our language is actually the most difficult to learn because of all of the exceptions.
I have spoke our language for my whole entire 41 years of existence,
you still haven't mastered
still screw it up immensely, if that's a word.
Which one?
Yes. Okay, so what are the
rest of them kind of go along with working with nature and making room for nature.
And I noticed one of them literally says nature twice.
It does. It repeats. The last one is repeated twice. Make room for nature. Make room for nature. And the other one that kind of stood out was that nations could rule independently. Like, don't fight with another nation. If you have a grievance with another nation, you should have a world court that would decide, who's right and who's wrong, which is an interesting theory. I think that this was a group of people who got together, this is just speculation, and said, hey, some of the stuff that we're doing, we could do it a different way.
Yeah.
And kind of wrote these things down and like, hey, guys, listen to reason here. Like, if this was the case, wouldn't things be better? Like, if we didn't have overpopulation, wouldn't that be better? We're not saying kill anybody. We're just saying, like, hey, if nuclear fallout happens and there's 7 people and we get up to this point, let's start looking at that. Well, whatever. Of course, now this came in 1979, so there is the Cold War element that is a part of that. We did look at the possibility of nuclear war.
Yeah.
I was just listening to another news segment, and it was talking about our presidents and how many nuclear warheads we had just aimed at places in massive excess.
And that also goes in hand with why we don't worry about nuclear war. It's so crazy that the reason we don't have to worry about being nuked is because of how many nukes we have here pointed at other people, because they have this agreement called mutually assured destruction. And the World Court had to sign into it. And what's the name of the
United Nations?
Yes, the United Nations has an agreement of mutually assured destruction. There are people bowing out of the United Nations as we talk.
Well, we promised you a terrifying tale.
And I think we just succeeded.
So maybe, just a thought, get you a big piece of marble, carve a hole in it, and hide underneath that thing, because maybe these cats knew something we don't know.
Almost assuredly.
Granite? Did you say granite? What was they made of? What was they made of?
See, that's that whole English language
impossibility.
What was they made of?
Whatever they was made of, get that.
Granite.
Granted, yes.
I
mean, that's what I'm. Granted, I mean that.
Guys, have a rotten morning.
Have a rotten morning and stay rotten.
Stay rotten.